This morning, Mark Dice came on and was making fun of Vivek Ramaswamy a little bit about this tweet right there. He says, "Can't make this stuff up. Here's Biden nearly a decade ago, sitting next to none other than Mayorkas, proselytizing the grand right-wing myth known as the Great Replacement Theory. Turns out it's not a conspiracy theory, it's just the basic immigration policy for Democrats." So what Mark Dice was saying is, you just noticed that tweet now. Most of us have already known about that for a long time. True, but what I was really asking is why nobody ever mentions Mayorkas? Why don't they ever mention Mayorkas? Now just look at his face and you're going to see exactly what I mean. I'm going to get rid of myself because I'm going to expand this. All right, now just watch him as Biden speaks.
African communities, Asian communities, Hispanic communities, and the wave still continues. It's not going to stop, nor should we want it to stop. As a matter of fact,
do you see the little smirk and the smile and this sort of little loving gaze he gives at him, and he's sort of coy, and he's like, "Oh, look at that. Yeah, now we're talking. That's what I like to hear." Can you believe that? I mean, it's right there.
It's one of the things I think we can be most proud of. So there's a second thing in that black
Continues.
box.
There we are.
An unrelenting stream of immigration. Non-stop.
So he spends an awful lot of time during this little thing with Biden, staring off into nothingness, especially the first part, because it's not too interesting to him. And all of a sudden, when Biden starts talking about immigration, all of a sudden he kind of perks up and he's looking over a little bit like, ooh, here, now we're talking. I saw this the first time I saw it. I don't know about you, but I could see it right away. I mean, you probably did notice it, but the whole thing has been a put on the entire time. And I'm sure if you've ever seen any of the hearings Mayorkas has done, I mean, he tries to play himself off as trying his best and everything. Like he's kind of a combination of Mr. Magoo and the swing line stapler guy, where he's saying, I don't know. Well, it's very complicated, and we're looking into that, and I will write it down, and I don't have those numbers in front of me, but I'll have them next time. I'll be able to give them to you in writing. Of course, everything's in writing because that way it's not on the screen. And of course, he wants to talk to them later, and he'll get back to you about that. And he's always a little looking like he's just a little overwhelmed and everything. And I'm not buying it. But let's just watch him a little bit more.
And I looked at him just like you're looking at me, like, what's he talking about? He said they're looking for that secret that allows America to constantly be able to remake itself, unlike any other country in the world.
Yeah, remake itself. Yeah, we're going to be remaking it. Remember, this is back with Obama. This is from 2015. So Obama wanted to fundamentally transform the United States, if you may remember.
And I said, I can presume to tell you what's in that black box, Mr. President. I'm old enough now. I said, one is that in America, there is an overwhelming skepticism for orthodoxy.
All right, now get ready for this. This is a whopper coming right now.
From the time a child, whether they're naturalized or they're native born, they think about it. A child never gets criticized in our education system for challenging orthodoxy.
All right, now does anybody believe that in our education system, nothing happens if you challenge orthodoxy? I mean, come on. Yeah, unbelievable. I mean, all anybody talks about is how it's a factory system.
So there's a second thing in that black box, an unrelenting stream of immigration, non-stop.
You see him looking like, ooh, I can just see it now in the distance.
Non-stop. Folks like me who are Caucasian of European descent, for the first time in 2017, will be in an absolute minority in the United States of America. Absolute minority. Fewer than 50% of the people in America from then and on will be white European stock. That's not a bad thing. That's a source of our strength.
So there's a lot of DEI language in this talk he gives, and he understands none of it. Just the source of our strength. That's just a throwaway line. People toss it out there. And it's been put into people's minds so much that even that guy who had, Richmond, north of Richmond, I can't think of his name, Oliver, I think, when he had his interview, he was saying, well, diversity is our strength. It's because it's been hammered home, hammered home. And kids will come home from school and just talk about how diversity is our strength. They have no idea what it means. And I remember as a kid, it was starting back then, diversity as our strength. I'd be thinking, exactly how is it a strength, really? I mean, what do you mean by diversity? I mean, it's easy to see through this stuff, but people just get so browbeaten, and then it just gets repeated so often. Well, anyway.
We haven't always gotten it right. I don't want to suggest we have all the answers, but we have a lot of experience of integrating communities into the American system, the American dream.
The American system, the American dream. He just sort of throws words out. He has no idea what he's talking about.
A generation from now, as I said, things will change even more.
Okay, so coming up is inclusion.
But the most important lesson we've learned, we don't always practice it, is that inclusion counts. Let me say that again. Inclusion counts. Inclusion counts. Being brought in and made a part of the community. Whether it was my Irish ancestors with signs "No Irish Need Apply," and the anti-Catholic movement of the Know-Nothings in the late 1800s, straight through to how some respond today to the number of folks in the United States of America that are Hispanic in background. We've always ultimately overcome it, but it's always been about inclusion.
Okay, so two things. First of all, in DEI world, CRT world, inclusion means exclusion, because you include everyone except for the norm, the normative group. So that's exclusion by inclusion. He doesn't understand that, and he's the perfect person to be their president, to be their person to reflect this, because he's passing the message on without really understanding it. So he's more of a stooge here. Second thing is, I'm 100% Irish. He's talking about being Irish. Okay, I don't buy into this whole identity thing. So many Irish have decided to buy into this identity politics and say, "Whoa, I'm also oppressed. Look how we were oppressed." And look, there's a history there, but there's a complete separation between me and somebody in Ireland or from Ireland who's oppressed. And it's really pathetic to be reaching back for that, to say, me too, I'm also included in this excluded group, which is now going to be so big that we'll exclude the original group. It's so convoluted. It's such a strange narrative that they build. That doesn't work for me.
I'm proud of the American record on culture and economic integration of not only our Muslim communities, but African communities, Asian communities, Hispanic communities, and the wave still continues.
There's that smirk again.
It's not going to stop, nor should we want it to stop. As a matter of fact,
now he's really in love.
It's
look at that.
one of the things I think we can be most proud of. So the truth of the matter is, when I say we have to be able to see one another, I'm not talking about surveillance. I'm not talking about cameras. I'm talking about being able to look at one another and see one another. See who we are.
All right, so I wanted to leave that in because he goes off about seeing people kind of throughout this, but he just rambles on about seeing people, and it comes across like he feels like he's being profound. I mean, he's talking about seeing people and trying to redefine it and come up with some kind of insightful meaning of seeing, and it's not there. I mean, if anything, it's reused stuff. But I wanted to leave that part in because he also makes what I consider to be a little bit of a Freudian slip when he's just saying, and I don't mean surveillance cameras. Why is that on your mind? That's a complete non sequitur. Nobody's saying that. Why would we think of that? And why would you think of that, Joe? It's because you are part of making a surveillance state. That's the reason. And I think we all know that. Oh, the third thing on CRT speak, right back in the very beginning.
We have to work from the ground up and engage our communities and engage those who might be susceptible to being radicalized because they are marginalized.
Okay, so just talking about radicalization, he just knows it's like you want to mention that word a lot, as much as you can. Make sure it's talking about radicalization on the internet, because years ago they were already thinking about how they want to control the messaging. But he doesn't understand the language, because then he's saying they're radicalized because they're marginalized, and that's not really the way CRT is supposed to be used. Marginalized doesn't exactly mean that. But that wasn't the focus of this, of what I wanted to say here. I really wanted to talk about Mayorkas, and nobody ever seems to mention that just completely blatant expression on his face showing that this was part of his plan. And remember, this is 2015, so everything got screwed up by Donald Trump. I mean, 2016 rolls around, all of a sudden, this little plan, which was just going so great, is all of a sudden completely derailed. And that's what threw them into complete TDS. So anyway, I think that wraps it up. I probably had a couple more points to make, but we'll leave that for the staircase anyway. Enjoy the day.
Ты заходи, если что.